Welcome, everyone, and we're back with a show. First of all, my apologies for screwing up the title. I was on a live show when I did that, so I wasn't paying as much attention as I needed to. Uh, there he is, my co-host for today, Robert. Robert,
Hey, gang.
how have you
How's it going,
been?
everybody? Oh, man, I have been
I
angry, as I always am. But
I
here I am.
I have noticed some of that, I think. For the people watching, there's another one in the show as well, who's in the background, which is Lilith. Lilith will be running the side chat, so if you guys have questions, Lilith will throw them on screen. And so let's get to our guest for today. Our guest for today is Zach, otherwise known as Adherent Apologetics. So welcome, Zach.
Hey Robert, hey
Hey,
Peter,
how's it
thanks so
going,
much for
man?
having me. I'm really pumped to talk with you guys, so appreciate you inviting me onto your show.
Fantastic.
Same here. So yeah, let's just start out because you already said that your time is a little bit limited, so we might run a little shorter than we used to. So we usually start off with one single question, and that is, can you do a brief introduction and tell us what do you believe, and more important, even why you believe it?
Right, yeah, that's great. Thanks for having me. So, my name's Zach. I run the YouTube channel Adherent Apologetics. I talk with people about philosophy, biblical studies, theology, all that fun stuff. I'm a Christian, and we just search and look at these big questions. And I have guests on that are a lot smarter than me. We talk about these things. That's Adherent Apologetics out on YouTube and podcast. What do I believe? I'm a Christian, obviously. So, in basic form, a Christian is someone who, like, I believe that God exists and I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. So I think, in as brief of a form as that, those are probably the two biggest things, the biggest questions for me that I believe are answered in Christianity. And I think Christianity makes the best sense of reality. And I'd love to talk with you whatever capacity you want about that. So yeah, that's the basics of me and my beliefs. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. There's one more portion to that. You told us what you believe. The second portion, and we can probably dive into this, is why do you believe it?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot that can be said. Why do I believe it? I think in a broad sense, I believe it because I think that God exists and I think Jesus rose from the dead. I think that Christianity offers the best picture and explanation of reality. I think there's really good reasons to believe from God. I think I know at least Peter listened to my debate with Randolph Richardson, and I talked about some of those reasons, which was a lot of fun. I think contingency, fine tuning. I think there's good reason to believe in miracles. And I think these other arguments like moral realism or consciousness or even kind of reason I've been playing with recently, I think very strongly point to God's existence. And then with Jesus' resurrection, very basically, I think if God exists, the probability of the resurrection raises. And I look at kind of like the religions that we have, and I think Christianity offers the best and most beautiful picture. So very shortly, that's why I believe that Christianity is true. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. And so I'll ask you what it is I've asked other people who've kind of given the same answer. And that is, I don't know, outside of, let's say, the big, four? What, Christianity, you know that one.
Mm-hmm.
Hinduism,
Mm-hmm.
Islam,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure I'm missing something else. Can you name five others not named that and that's not attached to Christianity?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, Judaism's a big one. It comes out of like the Christian
Judaism,
religion.
that would have been, yeah.
Buddhism. There's Taoism.
Okay.
There's a lot of like animalistic religions. I believe that's the right way of saying it. Like more like tribal, animistic, not animistic. Confucianism maybe is a religion. I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Probably, maybe some people think of it more as like a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think when we get into like tribal religions, there's many different worldviews. You know, you talk about like ancient Greek religion or ancient Roman religion. Yeah, there's a lot out there. So
I will give you credit, in all honesty, for the people I've asked. I think you've come in first place, man. So congratulations on naming the most. What do you know about them?
What do I know about them? That's a good question. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the religion, right? So
okay,
obviously,
go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm a Christian. I grew up in like a Christian environment. I grew up in America, so we're predominantly Christian. So I definitely know the most about Christianity. Like I think there's no doubt about that. And then I think other religions, like there's like Judaism. I've made the effort to like, obviously I read the Old Testament, which is the Jewish scriptures. I've talked with rabbis before, which is a lot of fun. I've reached out to Islam, with talking with like Muslims and stuff. I've talked with a few Muslims, been to a mosque, read the Quran. Cool people did that. And then with like other religions like Buddhism or Hinduism, I know bits and pieces, and I know like the basics of their beliefs, but I don't know like everything. And I think because of just like, we could talk about this if you want, like natural theology. I think the three religions that I think could possibly be true are Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. So those are like the three I probably think the most about.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope that helps.
So yeah, I dig it, and great answer. But to challenge you a little bit, and there's an enormous terrier, so pardon my table shaking. Everyone knows who Bubba is, and Bubba's quite the personality, and now I'm holding on to his toy here. But there are thousands of different religions not named Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and all the stuff that you've named. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you said Christianity offered the best explanation for this, and that. But if I were to ask you to name 5 of the African gods,
can I jump in real quick, Robert? Because I think Zach said something that would really interest me, because he said of all the religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam might be the ones that are true. Can you explain how you get to those three maybe being true? So what led you to think that?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question, Peter. Thank you. So I think Robert was kind of hinting at this. He's gonna like name like 5 African gods, and I could name like Egyptian gods like Osiris or Isis, but like in terms of modern ideas, I really can't. So why limit it to like Christianity, Islam, or Judaism? This is a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. And I think it comes down to natural theology and just kind of like thinking about monotheism. So there's thousands of religions out there, thousands of different versions of deities, and just about all of them, with the exception of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, ascribe to some form of polytheism, where a lot of these deities are created, they're finite, they're contingent beings, they're limited beings. And I think that through natural theology, we can kind of establish that if there's a God worth worship, it wouldn't be something that's created from something else. Like, why worship something that's created? Wouldn't you want to find like the ultimate reality? I hope that makes sense. So I think that I can limit it to 3 is I think that what we have in natural theology is we can argue for an unlimited, maximally great, not created, initially timeless being that's not contingent on anything except itself. It has necessary existence. It's not contingent in any capacity. And like that to me is like the ultimate reality and the God worthy of worship, which I think we can get to through like contingency or fine tuning and all that fun stuff. And when you look at like the religions that I've surveyed and the religions that I've studied, it seems like to me only Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are the only ones with some sort of like large following that would fit under that monotheistic like brand, if you could say.
Yeah, and so I think you guys are not the first. I think I don't want to say it, so I don't want to sound like I'm stupid here, but there was a monotheistic religion before you guys came along. Yep. But even if that's the case, this was a conversation that didn't turn out too terribly hot, in my opinion. So far, we're on a good track, man. So let's keep it up. Screw the Steelers. But there was. It really sounds like you are kind of going on the standard track, as in you're basing this on what it is you know and what you believe about Christianity, right? It's like, yeah, well, God's the maximally great. He's the only one, all this other stuff. But how do you know that's the it? How do you know that having a God with an elephant's head isn't the it? Or maybe a God who can F up and make mistakes and has something to learn, like a good parent, and pass down, right? So it sounds like you're still judging it based on what you already believe to be the it. But how do you know that your it is the it and not the people who worship Ogun?
Yeah. That's great. Appreciate your question. So I think there's a few things we could do here to kind of like break down.
Let's break it down.
Yeah, like if God exists, who would God be? Something like that. Like, why have like a limited, like, polytheistic God, where in a sense,
It was irrational.
yeah. So why have like a limited? Yeah, sorry. Why have like a limited polytheistic God, versus like a monotheistic, like maximally great God? And very shortly, I think the best reason to think that God would be maximally great, unlimited, like the Judeo-Christian God or the God that Islam believes in, and not like some elephant head thing like you kind of talked about, is there's this thing called the argument from limits. So I don't know if you guys listened to my debate with Randolph Richardson, which was a lot of fun. In that argument, I brought forth a contingency argument. And what I argue, there's two parts of two stages. The first stage is that there's a necessary being. This kind of argues that, like, at the heart of the question of like, why is there something rather than nothing? The answer would be because there was something. That something can maybe be like energy or the big, like I think Graham Oppie would argue that like he thinks that like the what's it called, the singularity, that's time equals zero, and out from there we get everything. You can come to all different conclusions about what that necessary foundation of reality would be.
Right.
So at that point, you could say, Zach, you have this like monotheistic, unlimited God here, but then like you, Robert, you have like your like limited polytheistic God that's one of like maybe a committee gods, or it's just kind of there, whatever. And for stage one of a contingency argument, that's totally fine. But what I think is convincing is the argument from limits, which basically says that at the foundation of reality, there's no limits to it. You see, I think there's this thing that we encounter in our experience when dealing with the foundation. It's called the problem of arbitrary limits. And what that says is that at the foundation of reality is that there wouldn't be any limits, at least in an arbitrary sense. Like I have this water bottle right here that has maybe 100 units of water into it, right? So why is there 100 units of water in that water bottle? Well, it's because I poured this amount of water into it. I maybe drank a little bit left. So now there's just 100 units there. I think that kind of same idea can be applied to the foundation of reality, because I think that whatever the foundation of reality would be, it wouldn't be something limited, something arbitrary.
What do you mean by the foundation of reality?
Right. This is great. The foundation of reality, I'm talking about like something that has necessary existence. So it's kind of helpful to kind of walk through the contingency argument here, but at the heart of the contingency argument is this idea that, well, there's things that are contingent, say like myself or you, Robert, things that depend on other things for existence. Like we didn't have to exist. We don't have necessary existence in terms of something that had to exist in reality. Like your gorgeous little dog right there didn't have to exist. It's the product of other things. It's contingent because it depends on outside explanations for its existence. And what I'm talking about with the foundation of reality is that the thing or the being that's completely different from that, the thing that has necessary existence. It doesn't exist because of any sort of like outside explanation. It exists because it had to exist. So maybe that helps clarify.
Okay.
I think I see what you're saying. Go ahead, Peter.
And I'm going to be cheeky because Christianity didn't exist when Judaism started existing. So Christianity is dependent on the Jewish God. So wouldn't that then rule out the Christian God, because he's dependent on a completely different religion? The Christian God is literally a carbon copy of the Jewish God.
Right. Okay. I think I'm getting what you're saying here. And if I'm wrong, please butt in and clarify. But I would say I think that that's wrong, because I think that it's helpful to understand that I'm arguing for something that has necessary existence. So yes, Christianity didn't exist for forever. It hasn't existed for 13.8 billion years old. I think that's how old the universe is. Like Christianity came about with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So in a sense, the Christian belief or the Christian dogma is contingent on the resurrection of Christ. But I don't think it would follow then that the Christian God is, because I'm not saying that God came into the earth at the resurrection, though I do think God took on the flesh in the person of Jesus.
Okay, but that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Okay,
so
my bad.
I'm going off of your own words, because you said earlier that you obviously read the Old Testament, which is Jewish scripture, basically. So that makes the whole of Christianity, including the Christian God, dependent on Judaism. Because that's where the God came from. They came up with the God that you now believe in. Apart from the fact that books were added to it, which is the New Testament. So by your own rules, wouldn't that rule out Christianity as being non-dependent?
Right. So I think it's helpful to clarify again here. There's a difference between like Christianity and like the Christian beliefs and the Christian dogma and the Christian God. Like they're not totally dependent on one another. Does that make sense to you?
Say again.
So I'm saying that yes, I would totally agree that Christianity would emerge from Judaism in a sense. Like we use the Old Testament. We think the Old Testament points to Jesus, and Christ is the fulfillment of when we look at like the covenants, like the Abrahamic covenant and the Davidic covenant and stuff. But I don't think that would make the Christian God contingent. I would think that'd make Christian religion would come forth from out of Judaism, but we're still believing in the same God. If you look at like Exodus 3:14 in the Old Testament, where it talks about Yahweh being like, I am who I am. In the Old Testament, it was the idea of God being the self-existent one, the one with necessary existence. And Christianity would agree, like, yeah, God has necessary existence. And we're not saying there's a new God. We're just saying that God has revealed himself more fully in the person of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but so this is what I maybe clarify better, because the Jews do not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, that Jesus was the Son of God, that he was God. Apart from there are a few that do believe in Jesus, which I still think is kind of strange. They're still defining as Jews, but believe in Jesus. But so he's not recognized in the Jewish religion. That's what I'm saying. So it's not universal, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. What I would say is our opinions don't change what's true. You know.
We agree on that.
But I'm glad. So let's say like Robert thinks the Earth is 13.5 billion years old, and I think it's 13.6 billion years old. Both of us could be wrong, but we both could be right about the approximate age. And I don't know exactly what I'm getting at about the analogy, but like people can disagree about truth, but it doesn't change the objective reality of truth. You know, truth is true whether we want it to be true or not. So just because Jews would disagree about the person of Jesus, maybe, well, yeah, of course they would. That doesn't change what's true or not. So like if God's always existed, whether you believe it or not. And if
you're right, so if that's the case, let's rewind just a little bit. Okay. You're right, and we can quote the Bible all day long. We can all do it. How do you know your God exists, though? You see what I'm saying? Because we put a lot on this guy's shoulders already. Contingency, ultimate reality. But if he's not there, there's nothing to hang on his shoulders.
Yeah, I
see what I'm saying.
I want to add into what is truth. I think, and this is, I think, fairly common. True is what you can demonstrate to be true.
Facts.
So,
okay.
And how would you demonstrate any of this to be true?
Right. First, I'll just go back very briefly onto what Robert said. I would agree. Like I'm putting a lot on God, and if God doesn't exist, then I'm wrong. You know, like if God doesn't exist, then Jesus didn't rise from the dead, and I'm just wrong about being a Christian. Like, is that straightforward? But I'd love to get back for a second with what Peter said, because he said what's true is what can be demonstrated to be true. Peter, can you demonstrate that statement to be true?
Yes, I think that truth is the same for everyone. It isn't dependent on a religion. It isn't dependent on not being religious. It is about what you can demonstrate to be true. I mean, if I say I'm running this show with a remote, I can demonstrate that by just holding up my remote and showing people that this is actually what I'm doing. If I press this button, it'll go to your face. If I press another button, we'll go back to the full studio. So I can demonstrate that what I am doing is true, that the tool that I'm using is true. It's a clear and simple demonstration, and that's the part that I find is lacking in religion, because you obviously do have a book that makes a lot of claims, but which of those claims can actually be demonstrated to be true? And that's my struggle.
Right. It's a great question. There's a couple of things we could talk about here. But the first is, I would say, are you saying that all things that are true, that we should believe to be true, are things that need to be demonstrated to be true?
Yes, I don't think that it would be good for us to accept something to be true if it cannot be demonstrated to be true. Because
Can you? Sorry, I didn't mean
I can go with a really simple thing. Chemtrails. A lot of people claim that they're spraying chemtrails. There's no evidence that there's a spraying of chemtrails. There's a perfectly good explanation for what actually happens, what causes the stripes in the air that we see. So we don't believe that they're spraying chemtrails just because someone makes a claim. You need to demonstrate that your claim is actually true.
Right. Would you say that you believe that the laws of logic exist? Like maybe like the law of identity or non-contradiction? Things are
All right, here we go. All right, my man. Here we
I'm
go.
not precept. I promise I'm not precept.
No.
No,
Okay.
hold on. We
But
got dogs fighting in the background. Okay,
This-
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Hold on.
This
No.
is
Just, I got it. So we are going down a very dangerous road. Let's. When you talk about, do I think the laws of logic exist? There's an enormous difference between, is the limping guy drinking liquor? I can demonstrate this to be liquor. That is a hard reality. The laws of logic are a description of, right? So no one it's like, do you guys believe in like evil? Well, no one ladles something out of the bucket of evil and pours it on. It is a description. And so do the laws of logic exist? Yes. And the fact that we can describe, like I cannot imagine my lights being on and off at the same time. The law of non-contradiction is a description of that reality. So if you're going to go down the whole, is it an actual thing? Let's just agree the answer is no. It is a description of reality.
Yeah, the laws of logic is literally what we came up with to describe reality. So it isn't a prescriptive thing. And also there are different laws of logic.
Right. Okay. So there's a few different things we could say here. I would agree that the laws of logic are prescriptive. I don't think they exist in like some sort of like Platonic realm. But what I would say is we talked about this idea of demonstration. And I would think the laws of logic would come before demonstration. Like, let's say we come up.
Go ahead.
Let's just say we come up with an experiment here. And all of a sudden, because I think I'm not a scientist, but I mean, it seems like it's totally conceivable that it could happen where, let's say we demonstrate that, I'm just trying to come up with a scenario here, where Mars exists. We discover a planet called Mars and it exists. And let's say someone else does a study, they use the same or a similar methodology, and they say, wait, I don't see this planet called Mars. I don't think Mars exists. So is it possible then that Mars both exists and doesn't exist? Because scientists, this is just a theoretical, obviously Mars exists, but scientists use their demonstration and they do their tests and they demonstrate, well, this study shows that Mars exists, and this study shows that Mars doesn't exist, right? So it would seem to me like we wouldn't conclude that Mars both exists and doesn't exist in that scenario, because we know of like the law of identity, where either something, and so it seemed like to me the laws of logic are more fundamental than like the idea of science and like demonstration.
Okay, I got to ask a quick question because I don't want to get way too far off track. So I think the original question was, or the request was to demonstrate your God. And now we're talking about Mars, light switches being on and off. And I get where you're coming from. But if you ask me, is Bubba here? The answer is yes, the buzz is real. And so I'm kind of curious, can you do at least half of that with your God without asking us, can we demonstrate the law of non-contradiction or if Mars exists? Because when you go down the road with an apologist, that's kind of what normally happens. Here's the question, but we end up over here. And so I asked earlier about a demonstration of your God, because you're right. If this God doesn't exist, we're hanging a whole bunch of stuff on his shoulders and it's useless. So instead of talking about does Mars exist, I would like to see if your God exists.
Right. Well, I mean, right over here, here's my God. Nah, I'm just
okay. All right, your microphone. I am no longer an atheist to your God. I believe in your God, and I still think the Steelers suck. Now, please continue.
Well, hopefully, at least I can help change your mind that the Steelers suck, and maybe get to God.
You would have a better chance at the Steelers, but let's go for it. Let's go for it. Come on.
Well, as much as I love the Steelers, I think that's for another day.
That'll be the second talk. Go ahead.
The whole point of me talking about like Mars and like stuff like that is I believe that you don't have to demonstrate something for something to be believed. I think that there's totally like I think the idea of verificationism, I think it's self-refuting because you can't verify it. So no, I can't like point like right there. Oh, there's God. You see him? Yeah. Like I can't do that.
Right.
I don't.
Well, how about the effects of God? Like I don't see.
Wait,
like my
Robert,
Jack Russell.
Robert,
Go ahead.
Can I jump? So can you name me one other thing that you would say that you would need to accept as real that you cannot demonstrate, other than anything related to the religion that you believe in?
Sure, I think that I mean I talked about like the laws of logic in a sense. Like we can't like look and be like, oh, there's the law of non-contradiction. But I mean I think those things exist. I think they exist necessarily. I think.
So I agree with you that something that is abstract you cannot show it, because that's the definition of being abstract. So but we can show that the laws of logic work. That we have demonstrations that those work. What I'm saying is, can you describe something that is an actual thing, not an abstract thing that we came up with to describe reality, but something that you think exists without being able to demonstrate that it exists outside of your religion?
Right. Well, I would say that either A theory or B theory of time is true, and we can't look and be like, oh, there's A theory or oh, there's B theory. Like, I would say that one of those is true, and they exist, and it's like it's actually it's in reality in the sense, but we wouldn't be able to like point and see it. So that's another thing. I think mathematics is a good example. You can't look and see 2 + 2 = 4.
But you still go back to abstract things. I don't know if you realize if you're talking about mathematics.
Yes, you can.
Those are abstract. Sorry?
What was that?
You can see 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, that too. But so I was referring to mathematics itself.
I know.
Maybe an object.
I've been putting comments up.
maybe an object or a person or anything tangible, what would we otherwise be tangible, that you can demonstrate that you cannot demonstrate to be real, which you think we need to accept without being able to demonstrate that is real, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm Dutch, so I'm as good as people say my English is. It's not perfect, so at times I do struggle with a few things, but do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think your English is great, Peter. But I'm a little confused with like, what do you mean by? Can you define abstract for me? Because I'm not fully like understanding like what your definition of abstract is.
Well, so with abstract, I would say that is something that we came up with, a description that we came up with. So math is abstract. It does tell us about reality. The laws of logic are abstract. It's a set of rules that we use to explain reality. Those are abstract things. I can't hand you a jar of logic. I can't hand you a jar of math.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And if we're going to Jesus or God, those should be real entities. So I should be able to point and show you Jesus or show you God. You say that's not necessary. So I'm thinking anything like that, other than anything that has to do with your religion. Is there anything else that you accept as being real without being able to demonstrate?
Right. So if we define abstract as something that we came up with in a sense, I would argue that the laws of logic aren't by your definition. Like I would say, could something both exist and not exist before there were any human minds to understand it?
Sorry, say again.
So from what I understood when you were responding there, you said you would define something abstract as something that kind of is a product of like not human experience, but something we come up with, something we create. What I would argue is I think by that definition, the laws of logic wouldn't be abstract because I think they exist before there's any minds. So I just asked the question, like, we were talking about Mars earlier, before there were human minds, is it possible that Mars could both exist and not exist?
No, but so
before there were human minds, could we?
Now you're conflating exactly, and this is exactly the problem. Because Mars isn't an abstract thing. We can point to Mars. We can take a telescope. We can have a look at Mars. We have put things on Mars, taken pictures on Mars. So Mars isn't abstract. The laws of logic didn't exist. Did the rules that are explained by the laws of logic, did those exist? Yes. But the laws of logic are still a man-made concept. The laws of logic didn't exist, for instance, in prehistoric times, because no one had come up with those yet. If you go to what was his name? The guy who explained gravity. Newton came up with a whole. By the way, yeah. Newton came up
December
with
25th.
Yeah,
There's your Jesus.
Newton came up with a whole new kind of mathematics to explain the universe that didn't exist before he came up with it, but the universe did. So the abstract concept that we use to explain reality, that comes up the moment we come up with it. The things that it explains, those existed long before, and those are different. So we're talking about reality and the way we explain it. Robert, go ahead.
Got a question. We've talked about buckets of logic. Mars. Did something exist before there were minds? I would say about 7 to 10 minutes ago, I asked for a demonstration of God. And I want to kind of stay on track. This is kind of, like I said, here's my question. There's the answer somewhere over there. So I would like to stay here. I don't care about the laws of logic right now. I don't care about abstract versus physical. Like I said, if your God does not exist, hanging all this stuff does not land on his shoulders anyway. The laws of logic, fine-tuning, none of this matters if you're attributing this to your God. If I can't demonstrate widgets and I say, well, this is all responsible because of widgets, this conversation means nothing until I can show you what a widget is. And so I'm kind of curious still, without talking about logic, abstract, without a mind, where is your God? What is his address? Where can we find this guy? Is there a demonstration of him? I was about to say, I do not see, my Jack Russell is right over here. I do not see his farts. But I can demonstrate them, because if it happens right now, I will start crying and I will empty out this glass and I will start throwing up in it. It's disgusting. This dude is a fart on 4 legs. It's horrible.
I had
right?
a Jack Russell myself. I can absolutely confirm that
exactly. So Zach, the God that you believe in created gas bags on 4 legs. You pray to him tonight and try to figure out why this is. It's terrible. But I can demonstrate Papa's flatulence. So I'm curious for a demonstration of your God.
Right. So the whole reason we've been talking about like the laws of logic and stuff, I think, is because it seemed like to me that it was like there's an insistence on the need for a demonstration to show that something exists. And I would agree, demonstrations are helpful, but I don't think demonstrations are necessary. And that's why we get into
now, and I'll get that. And this is where I think you and I are going to disagree. Demonstrations are all that matter. Because if someone tells me that dude over there is my son, you need to come off of 18 years worth of cash. I'm like, I will absolutely do it. Now let's go to the paternity test place. We're going to do this straight up Maury Povich style, right? And if it comes out, Robert, we have the results and you are not the father. Yeah, I'm going to dance to Too Legit to Quit, right? But if they can demonstrate that kid has my DNA, I'm going to start writing checks. So I disagree with you. A demonstration of the truth is all that matters, because everything else is simply an assertion. So I'm curious for a demonstration. Because that's where you and I are definitely going to hard agree. A demonstration is all that matters. So hit me, please.
Right. So we've been talking about this demonstration today. And if straight up, like if you're looking for a demonstration and that's like the only thing that will convince you of a God, then I think you're going to, I just don't see a point in like doing stuff like this, because I don't think you're going to get it in the way that you're expecting it. And like,
okay, right there. When you say the way that I'm expecting it, right? Well, how about this? You continue. Let me see if I can catch where you're going with this.
Right. Well, I would say like, we're not going to look over one day and be like, oh, there's God. Right. Well, it's done. Like, let's pack up. God exists. We're done. I don't think that's how that's going to work. I mean, if we want to talk about like divine hidden and stuff, we can do that sometime. But all I've been trying to argue is demonstrations are great. They're useful, but they're not the end all be all for reasons like things don't need to be demonstrated. It's self-refuting, stuff like that. So I would argue that I think there's good reasons to believe in God. And I think like if you remember my debate with Randolph, I showed empirical studies where there was effectiveness in prayer, where it showed that, like prayer is actually effective compared to like non-prayed for people.
Sorry. Keep going. My dogs are being stupid. Please continue. I'm hearing every word. I just don't want to interrupt the broadcast.
Right.
Because they have to fight right here when I have 1,700 square feet of house. But please continue. Sorry, I'll mute myself. There. Right.
So I'll
keep going. I'm sorry.
Demonstrations are helpful, but they're not necessary. And I would say, a lot of people in their lives, and why I think the idea that we shouldn't rule out God because he hasn't been demonstrated, like I don't think that should be the case, is because to a lot of people in their lives, God has been demonstrated. He's shown himself to people and they believe he exists. So I think if we're just going off of merely personal experience, I think at best we're left 50-50. We're like, well, some people have seen God in a sense and he's like revealed himself to them. And other people would say, no, it seems like God's hidden. So I think if we're just going to go by personal experience, I think we're left in the middle. I'm
going to disagree with you on that, because you understand that personal experience is simply that. You and I were joking before the talk. My personal experience being a Cajun boy is that the Saints are the best. You are from a different region of the country. Actually, this is almost a great analogy. I'm from the South. You are not. You love Ben Roethlisberger. I love Drew Brees, right? Our personal experiences aren't matching up. We can both like football, but we clearly have different football teams. And so again, their demonstration. How about this? If some lady came to you and said, Zach, this is your child, would you not ask for a demonstration of that?
No, I would agree. Demonstrations have great merit.
Okay, no, and they're the only, if you're college, if you turned in, you're in college, if you turned in nothing but straight A's, and your college professor says, I'm giving you a D on the final grade, you would ask for a demonstration. You would say, why are you doing this? In what realm is demonstration not the only thing that matters? Because otherwise, again, I could replace you with the person who believes in Oshun. So why would I believe Zach, who's a good kid? I like you, man. But if I replaced you with someone who believes in Oshun, the African goddess of the sea and water, why should I believe Zach and not her? You see what I'm saying? Because demonstration is all that matters if you ask me. But you don't agree. So I'm asking for a demonstration on why demonstration is not the only thing that matters.
Yeah. So I have to jump in real quick. You share the screen, Zach.
Yes.
That's not going to work on our show because we don't have a scene set up to bring in the shared screen. If we wanted to do that, we should have set something up before the show, and we don't have that. So sorry for that.
No, I understand. I didn't prepare to share. I was just going to share. There's a lot that was said. So we could go into a lot of different demonstrations here. Where I kind of see the disagreement is I don't think demonstrations are necessary. I think that's because there's things that we believe that can be demonstrated that can't be demonstrated, like the laws of logic. And I think that
say that last part again. Say that one more time.
My apologies. What I said is I don't think we need to. I think demonstrations are great, but I don't think they're necessary. And I think that's true because I think that things like the laws of logic are more fundamental than like empirical demonstrations. And I think that my second point was verification isn't the idea we need to demonstrate things. It's just a self-refuting statement. So, I mean, if we want to keep going, like, you would argue, Robert, that we need this demonstration. I would say we don't. That's fine. But I feel like we're kind of talking in circles here. And what I was going to share on my slides is there have been studies shown that seem to show in double-blind environments that prayer does seem to be effective. That's why I was sharing my screen there, because I have these studies. And if you want to look them up, there's one in the Southern Medical Journal, 1988, published in July, that showed the effectiveness of prayer in a double-blind survey. And there's also one done in 2001 in the Journal of Cardiopulmonary Rehabilitation.
And I could also show you...
Guys, hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on. We've got a good question from the chat that I think maybe clear things up. This is from Mubarak. Mubarak is from Orange Show, Quran Lessons. He said the Christian God walked on earth and interacted with people. Why isn't he giving good evidence? Because obviously the people in the Bible did see God. Abraham is one of them. He met Abraham at his house, had dinner with him. So apparently God is perfectly capable of doing that without interfering with the beliefs of people, because Abraham still believed in the same God after he showed himself. Why can't God do that right now? If so many people are asking this particular question, and you said at the start of the show, your God's maximally powerful. What's keeping him?
Right. Yeah, this is great. I appreciate the question. So this is why I brought up the personal experience thing earlier, because I would totally understand and agree that there's a lot of people like you, Robert, and you, Peter, who probably believe, and I'm sure you believe, that God is hidden. And it seems like there's no God. You haven't had any sort of experience.
No, I don't believe God is hidden.
No.
I have no reason to believe your God exists.
My apologies.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
I wanted to make the same. I wanted to make the same because that's an important distinction to make.
Go ahead, Zach.
Go ahead.
Right. So, I mean, you guys have never, you don't believe that God's ever revealed himself to you. And what I would say is there's a lot of people that believe that he has revealed himself. So I think if we're just going to go off of personal experience, we have these people over here who say that God seems hidden. There is no God. Or I'm not saying this is what you guys believe.
You're fine. Go ahead.
There's like, God seems hidden. He doesn't exist. I don't believe in him. There's no reason to. But then there's people over here who say God has revealed himself to me. There's been this miracle or this has happened. And it seems very obvious to me that God exists. So I think if we're going solely off of personal testimony, I think we're left being in the middle saying, I don't know. Because I think there's people on both sides. So if we're going to count the testimony of the person who says, well, God is hidden, he must not exist, we should also count the testimony of the person that said, this miracle happened in my life. So if we're going off of pure personal experience, I think we're left kind of like 50-50 at best.
Zach, in 2000, I am so bad with my memory, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So I think it was 01. Okay. I was in so much pain, I actually wanted to die. I almost did die. Renal failure. By the time I got to the hospital, they literally told the person who brought me, if you would have brought him in here just 12 hours later, you would be burying him. We're going to save him, but he's literally 12 hours away. Mm-hmm. I prayed to Ogun. That's my personal experience. Ogun saved me. Am I right? Mm-hmm. I'm right. Right. Ogun saved me.
Sorry, I was just trying to follow on with your question.
No, well, I asked you. I prayed to Ogun to get me off that table. That's a true story. I almost died right there. I spent a month in so much pain. I actually wanted to die. If you've never experienced your organs failing inside of your own body, you don't want to. Let's say I pray to Ogun. I'm here right now. That's my personal experience. Did Ogun save me?
Right. So
Ogun is the African god of war and metal. He and I look a lot alike, so I always talk about Ogun. Did Ogun save me? That's my personal experience.
Right. So I think that we can't just go off of personal experience. So that's what I was saying with the comment earlier, where it's like, well, God seems hidden to me. Well, that's fine, but we can't just go off of personal experience when we're talking about like the merits of God's existence or not. Because I don't like.
Well, I'm talking about the merit of Ogun. Ogun got my ass off that table. Do you believe me, or would you like a demonstration? Or are you just going to say Ogun did it?
Right. So I think we're going in a lot of different directions here.
No. We're actually going in one. I'm actually asking you, do you believe Ogun saved me from renal failure? That's my personal experience.
Yeah. I would say.
So do you believe in Ogun? So Ogun did not save me from renal failure.
Probably not. I mean, I can't rule it out.
Probably not. Certainty. Okay. Are you saying there's a possibility that Ogun exists?
I mean, I think all right, so we're going to get into modal logic here.
No. I'm simply asking you, does Ogun exist? Is there a possibility that the African god of war and metal exists?
If there's a probability greater than 0, then yeah, it's possible that this being exists.
That's kind of against what your Bible says, but go ahead, Peter.
Robert, because
I want to know about Ogun.
You just said something. You said probably not. What do you base the probably not on?
Well, I mean, I think with claims like that, I mean, I think if it's conceivable, then it's possible. So I think we can't say probably. I think we live our lives based off of this probabilistic framework. I think outside of the laws of logic.
What I was asking is specific. Your reaction. Your reaction was when Robert said, "Did he save me?" You said probably not. So what made you come to that conclusion?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So I would say that I have no reason for believing that specific deity exists. But I can't rule it out with absolute certainty. I don't have 100% certainty that this being doesn't exist.
Bingo. This is exactly how we think about your God. Now, how do we get to your God?
Right. This is great. And this is why sorry.
So actually, let me ask one question real fast. So, and it's always breast cancer for whatever reason. But I always hear people tell me that they found a lump in their breast. They pray to the Christian God. My lump disappeared. I don't have cancer. Therefore, God is real. If I would have told you that, or if Susie would have told you that, Susie Q, would you have said probably not, or would you have said hell yeah? Of course, God saved you from breast cancer.
I mean, I would say that it's possible. I mean, I think I have independent reasons for believing that the Christian God exists beyond, and I don't have independent reasons for thinking the African deity you mentioned exists. So I think it's definitely more likely that specific incident that you bring up happened. Yeah.
So then, how about this? And I say this to everyone else when this comes up, and I'm being dead set honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe research Ogun and Osh. Maybe go research the other gods. Maybe they're the ones who saved that lady from breast cancer, or let the football player score a touchdown, or found someone's car keys. You're hanging a lot of stuff on a God that you haven't demonstrated, right? Have you ever thought about not believing in any gods, actually?
Yeah, there was a time in my life where I was very skeptical.
Okay.
Really doubted that God existed. So
how about that? May I ask about that story?
Sure. So, wow, we're going in a lot of different directions here, and I only have about 5-10 minutes left.
It's okay, man. It's okay. It's all good. Yeah, what's up?
It's been a lot of fun. Go Steelers.
Yeah.
So my story. Basically, when after my sophomore year of high school, I had a friend pass away in a car crash, and it kind of just led me to questioning like what's true about reality. I always grew up in like a Christian home, but I was never really a Christian. Just made me to question things, kind of wondering what's true about reality, and that sent me on a couple of years of wondering and reading and thinking, predominantly Christian, but I also talked with like atheists and Muslims and Jews. And I just came to the conclusion that God's existence and theism provided a better explanation of reality than naturalism. So I came to believe that God existed and Christianity was true. And in short, that's my story.
What was the thing that convinced you?
Right.
If you said I did a lot of research, what convinced you that God was real?
Right. I think it's the competing pictures at rock bottom of reality. So, and if you're, yeah.
No, go ahead. I'll go in after you. So, exactly.
I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like philosophy of religion, literature, and stuff, but in like among philosophers, there's two competing hypotheses. For the most part, for just about most of them, theism and atheism. And in this sense, they're using atheism as like the positive belief that God does not exist. I know you guys wouldn't necessarily subscribe to that. That's totally fine. I don't want to force things onto you. So theism and naturalism. One is at the foundation of reality is God, a maximally great being. The other one is naturalism. At the foundation of reality, we have no God. We have something else. And I think that when we get to like a contingency argument, which we unfortunately didn't really get to get into, I think there's much better reasons to think that at the fundamental rock bottom necessary existence, we have theism, a maximally great reality, versus a naturalist picture, whether it's like an infinite regress or other stuff. Yeah.
First, who dat? I'm throwing that in there, and a little something about me. Mm-hmm. Are you in your 20s by any chance?
I'm 20 years old.
You're 20 years old. God, that just hurts to hear me say that. I mean, goddamn, I'm getting a little older. So just so you know, I didn't tell you this in a pregame show. I probably should have. I was pretty much a fundamentalist Christian longer than you've been alive. Mm-hmm. So I've had both shoes on. I did not become an atheist until I was 39. I'm knocking on 50's door right now. So I get where you're coming from, man. I probably should have told you that in the pregame show. But I've gone down the exact same road. And I know you got to roll here in a little bit. And so I just want to kind of be your friend on this one. I'm not being condescending. Dude, keep doing what you're doing. If you're not hurting anybody else, and when I say not hurting anyone else, I mean truly not hurting somebody else. If you're not being the condescending type of Christian who's sitting there saying, oh, God loves you, but if you don't stop loving men, if you're a man, you're going to die and go to hell. And you do you. The only thing I'll tell you before you roll out is keep an open mind. And really, and honestly, and truly, there are about 2,000 religions on the planet right now, and of which you don't know 97% of them. So before you hang your hat on a God that you can't demonstrate without having to talk about laws of logic and does Mars exist, maybe go try on somebody else's shoes, right? I mean, I can honestly tell you, I hate Brussels sprouts. I would much rather get kicked in my one remaining testicle before I have one more Brussels sprout. I know that because I've tried just about every way you can make a Brussels sprout. So before you hang your hat on Christianity as the best way to describe reality, go find out what someone else thinks. And go
right. And I would say that I have been. Like, I treat atheism very seriously. I've read like J.L. Mackey's Miracle of Theism, one of the best contemporary defenses of atheism out there. Reading Arguing by Gods by Graham Oppie right now, another one of the best contemporary defenses of atheism. Read the Quran, read the Bible, talk with Jews.
Yeah.
I'm talking with all these different people. I talked about earlier why I think that I know there's 1,900 other religions out there, but I really think there's only 3 that actually could be true, because I think there's really good reasons
and before you rule out and say that there's only 3, go learn about the other 1,997 that you've already ruled out. And in terms of the best defense of atheism, I'll tell you the best defense of atheism right now. You don't have to read a single book.
I would.
I just don't believe you. That's it. There's really not this big philosophical.
I would add in one more thing. Try to figure out why you ruled out the others, and apply the same rules to your religion and see if it holds up.
I have. I mean, I think
keep going.
I'm about to have to slide out here, and I appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I've talked about, like, I believe that God is maximally great, and I think we get there through reason. I don't think we get there because I want it to be true. I think we get there through reason. And through reason, when I look at just about Hinduism or all these African deities or all these animism, we're looking at contingent created beings. I don't want to worship something that's contingent or created. I want to worship the necessary foundation of reality that exists uncaused, dependent on absolutely nothing. I don't want to worship something that's dependent on something. I want to find out what the nature of reality is.
I got one question about that. You keep saying God needs to be maximally great because of what he caused. What if God isn't maximally great? In fact, and I'm not trying to insult you, so please bear with me with this. What if somewhere there's a bumbling buffoon? He stumbled and knocked something over, and which he knocked over caused the Big Bang. Is that impossible? If it's not, then God doesn't need to be maximally great.
Let me ask you this: why would the foundation be arbitrarily limited rather than just limitless? Limitless seems simpler to me than arbitrary limits, like a lack of omniscience or omnipotence.
Why must there be any of that? Why must there be any of that?
Yeah,
because there is something rather than nothing, my friend.
But and you said that earlier, and I actually wrote that down. And before you have to roll out, that argument has been trashed. The whole something versus nothing. Well, the truth is, we don't know. And I know apologists like to hang their hat on, well, why is there something versus nothing? The question is, one, we don't know because we don't know what happened 1 second before the Big Bang. So as far as we know, there's always been a something.
Yes.
But you guys keep saying, why is there something versus nothing? And the truth is, we don't know.
It's a little bit worse because nothing cannot exist. The moment something exists, it's something.
Yeah.
And it's no longer.
Are you guys familiar with the argument from contingency, like Josh Rasmussen's version of it, or like a modal cosmological argument?
No, I'm talking about you keep bringing up nothing, but nothing cannot exist by definition.
We can't measure
the moment something exists, it is something. It's no longer nothing.
Can you dig it?
Yeah, I just don't know if that's true. Because we can describe things, but that wouldn't change reality. Like if there's nothing, there's nothing.
No,
and that's not change anything. It's just there's
how could nothing exist? If there is nothing to exist, how could it exist?
Nothing is the absence of existence.
Yes, so it couldn't exist,
and we don't know that. We don't know if there was ever a nothing.
Yes.
We don't know that.
I mean,
a nothing.
My argument for contingency doesn't depend on there being that. Like there's arguments of contingency that work in an infinite regress. That doesn't matter to me necessarily.
According to physicists, nothing cannot exist. There's no such thing as nothing.
Yeah, because nothing's the absence of everything, of anything that exists.
Yes, so it can't exist. So something cannot come from nothing because nothing can't exist. So there's nothing that can come from nothing, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think we're trying to describe nothing as something, but nothing is literally just the absence of anything.
Yes.
So,
but it's impossible to exist. That's
Well, because it wouldn't exist because nothing's the absence of everything. I feel like we're on the same page here. But I mean, I kind of have to go. So is there any kind of
we need to wrap it up, and I really liked this this conversation. It went completely different from what I
Zach,
expected.
you're a good kid.
Yeah.
You're a good kid, man. I like you. And by the way, go Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that.
So
Roethlisberger, I hope he stubs his toe, has chronic halitosis, and suffers from impotence. Please continue. Go Saints.
So what I want to suggest is that we get back on Twitter in about a week or so you can come up with something to do a follow up to the show, because I really like talking to you. So and we're just to say it, we're not limited to 2 shows. If you want to come back for 10 shows, no problem whatsoever. I'll be more than happy to have you on. I really like this conversation. So. I'll be looking forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, of course.
All I would say to wrap things up here is we disagree on a lot, but hopefully all of us just want to find what's true, and we're not going to let anything stop us from getting in the way of just trying to figure out what's true about reality. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can all just pursue truth. Thank you.
But of course.
Okay. So leaves me with thanking my good friend Robert for being here. Robert, always great to have you on the show.
Always be on, my man.
Special thanks for the lady backstage, Lilith Liberated, who ran the tool to bring up the questions. And now we've got a drunk,
anytime, guys.
Now we've got a drunk guy in the background.
There's a drunk guy in the foreground.
In the background. And I will remove him if he interrupts. Okay, I want to thank everyone who has been in the side chat. We've had some new people in here. I'm really glad to see all of you. Yeah, Theo, I'm sorry we didn't get to your question. If you can drop it in the chat real quick. Maybe can we do one question, Zach?
Sure, as long as it's really quick, because I have to go soon.
Okay,
but yeah, that's fine.
Theo, put your question in the side chat. Waiting for Theo. I didn't see it. Lilith, did you see?
There was a question about like why I think that God exists, like a maximum great reality versus energy at like necessary existence level. I don't know if that was it.
He said, question for Zach. Why would the necessary being be conscious and not just the energy of the universe? I think that's a more humble model.
Right. Yeah, this is great. So in the beginning, I talked about the argument from arbitrary limits. So I think at the necessary foundation, there'd be no limits. I think that limits depend on other things for their existence. So why couldn't it be energy? Because I think energy is limited. So let's just say that there's 100 units of energy that's always existed. It seemed like to me, limits depend on other things for their existence. So the question would be, why isn't there 101 units or 99 units? If you want to pose it as a brute fact, like it's just a brute fact, there's this specific amount, that's fine, but it seems more complex to me than something being limitless at the foundation. Well, I think it's conscious. I think the necessary foundation has to be personal to bring other things to existence. And I think the existence of other minds, which we did not talk about the argument from consciousness, is a good reason to think it'd be conscious as well. But hopefully that helps. And you can email me at adherentapologetics@gmail.com if you want to follow up on that with me. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Seems like a good point to end the show. So thanks to everyone who popped in. I'm as I said, I'm looking forward to doing another show. There are a few other shows that we're working on. We're gonna have our new co-host Erica on sometime soon. So look forward to that. And thanks everyone for watching, and see you all next time. Bye bye.
All right, peace.